we saw back in 2008, 2009, the state of New York promised over $100 million in subsidies and direct benefits to IBM. And in return, IBM promised to provide 1,000 nanotech jobs. Specifically, IBM accepted approximately $45 million to maintain the jobs in East Fishkill. Within a few weeks of cashing that taxpayer-funded check, IBM begun to outsource hundreds of jobs in East Fishkill and thousands of jobs stateside. Come on, Terrence.
Senator, how are you?
That was back in 2008 and 2009. IBM, just to give you a little bit of background, IBM used to employ about 130,000 people in the United States of America, 135,000. They employ about 105,000 people in the United States of America right now. IBM grossed over $95 billion last year. They have over $10 billion cash on hand right now. They're doing better than the state of New York. They are right now the second largest employer in India. So to go back to that nanotech promise that was made in 2008 and 2009, they didn't only accept over $100 million from the New York State Treasury, but what we found out at that time is that A, they did not keep their promise to the New York State taxpayers. They were offshoring large portions of their operation, and as soon as they met the letter of their agreement, they took that money and ran and began to lay people off, not only in East Fishkill in New York State, but throughout the United States. Now we're here this year in 2011. And the deal that has been laid out once again, not only with IBM, but with these large multinational corporations, all of which, including Intel, rely upon offshoring as a large cornerstone in their business model. We're asking a few simple things. Now let me be very clear. These jobs that are both supposed to be retained, which is an important qualifier that we all have to understand, and created, are supposed to be created and maintained right here in Yorktown and close to the 40th Census District. Any jobs in this hemorrhaging economy are good news. I could delve down into the fact that we should be helping small business owners, we should be focusing on infrastructure projects, putting blue-collar people to work, and not giving bailouts to multinational corporations. That's not about today. But there's some pretty good arguments to be made there. Today is about the fact that in our dealings, in New York State's dealings with IBM, we have already shown that by giving IBM money, they take a check, they cash the check, they promise to maintain jobs, they don't hold their promise to the New York State taxpayer, and instead they offshore large components of their business while hiding under a veil of secrecy. All we're asking this governor to do is to ask IBM and the other multinational corporations a few simple things. Number one, are these jobs going to be permanent? IBM accepted $45 million approximately, said that they were going to make jobs permanent in East Fishkill, cashed the check, and then laid people off. Are they going to do it again, or are these jobs going to be made permanent? Number two, are these real New York State jobs? What we have seen IBM and other multinational corporations do is that they take tax incentives and then they count jobs that are actually telecommuting jobs from either other states or abroad, and they count those jobs and their numbers. We need to make sure that these are actual New York State jobs. Number three, we've seen IBM do the shell game before. Like I said, back in 2008 and 2009, this large multinational corporation accepted over $100 million from the New York State Treasury, agreed to maintain those jobs, then once they cashed that check, laid those folks off. So the question is this a shell game, or can we absolutely make sure, and what we're asking the governor to do, is if these 6,900 jobs are actually going to be created and maintained, are other jobs being offshored in the state of New York of equal or greater numbers? This is pretty simple stuff. And the governor is a smart guy. I am a simple kid from Pauling. I am certain that the governor asked these tough questions in his negotiations of this $400 million deal. I will say this, there was not legislative input into this deal. This deal was made behind the scenes, behind closed doors, and it certainly is tough enough to pull together a deal like this behind closed doors. Forget about doing it in the public discourse. But now that this deal has been made public, we've got to make sure that we have the commitment from these multinational corporations that they're not going to take New York State tax dollars and run with the money while offshoring New York jobs. Very simple stuff. I'm sure the governor already asked the tough questions. We're asking that we make those answers public, and if not, it's not a game of gotcha. We're simply asking the governor, and we have sent him a letter that we've asked that he forward to these companies, that he sign and get agreement from them. The governor certainly has executive power to change that letter to the extent he feels necessary, but to get these commitments from these multinational corporations. This isn't a joke, folks. This is serious stuff. We're talking about $400 million. You know, in some of our building trades, we have 30–40% unemployment. We have small business owners right now in my district that are literally hanging on by a shoestring. And if we're really going to extend $400 million in direct and indirect incentives to these companies, we've got to make sure that the taxpayers are protected and that this good news is genuinely good news.